So, I've always had this big obsession with taking notes during my first few years in university and even back in high school. Like, I wrote so many notes, an unfathomable amount of notes. It was almost an obligation for me to write notes in order to get myself to study. I mean, just look at all these notes. These are just from my first year of university and my last year of high school alone. There's a lot older way back here, and that's not even considering the ones I took in a digital format in my next 2 years of university. So yeah, I wrote a lot of notes. It served its purpose. I always struggled with studying. I always struggled with getting myself to work, and I managed to develop these habits just because I used to write down notes. But the main issue I had with my notes is that I never used them. I would write them down, but I would never read them again. And it took an unbelievable amount of time to write down notes for specific subjects and lessons because I needed to copy off slides, I needed to copy off external resources, and it was an inefficient process. Don't get me wrong, I was happy with where these notes have gotten me. I've done well enough academically, but when it came to studying more and trying to improve and trying to do better, I really noticed that I plateaued. I could not get myself to do better despite studying even more and writing down even more notes. And worst of all, it's just consuming more time. Like, instead of spending 2 hours just trying to understand and study a concept, I would spend 5 hours just writing down notes, writing down charts, writing down mind maps with the idea of trying to facilitate my understanding to learn things better. The problem was every time I went into an exam, my results were the exact same as when I just noted down for 2 hours instead of, say, 5 hours. So one day I decided I've had enough. I'm not going to write down any notes anymore. And that was a very scary situation because I've essentially told myself I am no longer using the method I've reliably used for years to study anymore, and I want to see what happens. And obviously I was fully prepared to see my grades nosedive completely downwards. And so I decided to do this over the course of a semester. And to my surprise, at the end of the semester, that was the best scoring semester I've had in my entire university life. I frankly did not expect to maintain my grades, let alone improve them. So ultimately that brought me to the main question. What was holding me back when I was writing down these notes? The answer to that question is actually pretty simple. A lot of my energy that went into writing down notes was merely for the idea of trying to memorize every single line of the lecture or the content itself. So once I stopped writing down notes and started to tackle lectures and classes through different methods, I noticed that my mindset shifted from that of trying to get through lectures, get through content, as if like they're checklists and chores that I need to get through, and it shifted more towards, hey, what am I learning here exactly? What is the purpose of all this? And how does it tie to the entire thing that I am learning, which is my major? How does it tie to medicine? So for example, if I'm learning about the human papillomavirus, so instead of writing down the facts about the human papillomavirus in order to help me understand them and memorize them better, I instead tried to tie how this virus affects a human being and how does it like contribute to their overall health in a very broad sense. Now, don't get me wrong, it's not like the moment I stopped taking down notes, I got enlightened by the gods about this new approach of study. No, I had to learn it on my own. But what kicked off that process was not taking notes. Because for me, taking notes was something comfortable. I never ventured out. I never tried something new when it came to study. And the moment I set that aside, I was forced to discover more. There was a lot of trial and error. I used other people's notes. I used other people's flashcards. I made my own flashcards. I used pre-made flashcards. I did all sorts of things in order to try something new. And this venturing alone and this trial and error alone got me to the point of this funnel framework where I use all different resources in order to gain a main understanding of a concept and then narrow it down into the details as I repeat it over and over again. Now, I am not going to go too much into details about this umbrella funnel approach because I already covered that in another video about studying 5 times faster. So if you want to know the exact studying approach I use, you can go check out that video right after this. What was amazing though, the more I ventured out and tried different methods of studying, the more I enjoyed the process. And the more I enjoyed the process, the more I wanted to learn more. And that propelled me to understand a lot better when I studied the lectures themselves, and I wanted to do more in the day. And by more, I don't mean like study the concepts more. I mean study more different concepts and see how they tie together. And the more I refined this process, I found myself scoring higher and higher. And I eventually ended up being the top of the class without even wanting to. My aim at that point though wasn't all about grades. It was about getting the main picture of a concept for the fun of it. And And obviously that was a drastic change of mindset. But that would have not started had I not quit taking notes. Ultimately, notes have their uses. A lot of people are comfortable using them. But what I'm trying to encourage here is that you don't have to do notes. You don't have to follow notes. You don't have to follow a particular way of studying. Notes were the reason why I was held back. For you, it might be the same. That concludes my thoughts on notes. If you enjoyed this video, please consider subscribing. Thank you very much. Have a wonderful day.